This week on Relaxed Male, we're going to be talking about the man's soul. This is the pillar number 3 of the 4 pillars of a relaxed male. We're going to be diving into that. Plus, we also have the question of the week. Hello and welcome to Relaxed Male, a podcast that helps men change their relationship with themselves. I am your host, Brian, and I am a men's life and mindset coach who is here to help you understand that you don't have to suffer at your own expense. You can live your dream, and I encourage you to set, then pursue your goals. So join me as I change the mindset and attitudes of men so that they can be the leaders of their families and their destinies. Hey man, hello and welcome to Relaxed Male. All right, so this week we're going to be talking about the man's soul. Exactly what do I mean when I'm talking about the soul of a man? But before we actually get started in that, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time today to actually sit down and actually listen to the show. Been hammering these out on a very regular basis, and if you've been catching all of them, dude, I want to thank you. If you could do me a favor and just share this episode out, if you find it to be interesting or find it helpful or insightful in any way, please go on your podcatcher. Go ahead and click the share button and share this episode out onto Facebook and Twitter or wherever else you would like to share it to, or you know someone who would find this information helpful. It'd be an incredible help if you were to do that. Also, if you could, if you are been listening to this episode. We're just starting. Haven't got to the episode yet. Been listening to this podcast for a while, but haven't subscribed. Please do. It'd be tremendous help for me, and also it allows you to be able to get the podcast delivered automatically to your phone or tablet or whatever device you use as they come out, and they're released on every Thursday. And so you'd be able to receive them, and they'd be sitting ready for you to enjoy as you drive to work or are driving someplace, or, you know, or however it is that you end up consuming your podcast. So today we're going to be talking about the man's soul. But before we get into that, as always, we have a question of the week. And if you have a question that you would like to ask, you can go to relaxedmale.com/, contact, and that will actually give you a form that you can actually fill out and ask your question, and I will then read your question out loud on the podcast and then answer it. Or if you like, you can also ask by just shooting me an email, Brian with a Y at relaxedmale.com, and I will get that email and read it also on the show if you would like for me to do so. Today's question is asked by a dad, and he had his question or in comment is, my 14-year-old daughter got mad when I told her she had to sleep in my room for a week to let her uncle sleep in hers. She is now ignoring me. What should I do? Oh, teenagers, aren't they so fun? Get a little bent out of shape because they don't have their sacred privacy that they normally love to have whenever and in the sanctuary of their bedroom. Well, the solution to this is you can go in a couple different ways. One, tell her to just buck up and get over it. It's for a week, and that's true. We've all had to sacrifice our room and our sanctuary for a short time while relatives or guests come in and they get a nice place to rest. And so, yeah, it's weird thinking somebody else is sleeping in your bed and you're having to be stuck on a couch, or in this case, I guess the couch is also taken care of or is being filled by another family member. And so the daughter has had to be relegated to an air mattress in the dad's room. And so how do you handle something like this? And what I actually go through and mention about this is that how are you feeling just because your daughter's ignoring you? A lot of times we us guys, especially when it's one of our kids, they're mad at us and they're ignoring us, or even like our wives. When we're being ignored, they've put up a wall. They're not talking to us. We're in the doghouse, and we get maybe half an answer or half a word out of them whenever whoever it is angry at us. Well, I went ahead and explained what kind of the process of how people typically act. And that is using the model by Brooke Castillo over at thelifecoachschool.com. And the model is that you have a circumstance. That circumstance creates a thought. The thought causes an emotion. Your emotion leads to an action that generates a result. A circumstance is just a neutral event. And yes, all circumstances are neutral. I've had people argue from time to time, oh, how can it be neutral? You're saying 9/11 was a neutral event. You saying your grandmother dying suddenly is a neutral event. All these are neutral events. It's like, yes, actually they are. Look at 9/11. Yeah, we had a very negative reaction to it. We were sad. We were angry. We were indignant. We were, all these different emotions. We were ready to go out and punch the person responsible right back in the eye and give them an extra one just for good measure, just to let them know that you don't mess with us. But on the other side of the world, Osama bin Laden, he was as excited and as happy about that event happening as anybody could possibly be. Same event, two different outcomes. If it was a fact, if a response happened, if an event was if a event was a particular, if I can talk today, good gosh, if an event was supposed to be just one particular thing, then we would all be crying because of all the death that happens in the world. We'd always be in this state of being down. And so a circumstance is neutral until you apply a thought to it. Say use the event of your grandmother dying suddenly. You went through all the day, had a great day, actually, probably one of the best days. You may have gotten a promotion and all this other stuff, all sorts of great stuff. But then when you get home, you get a call that tells you that your grandmother died of a heart attack and they found her at 9:00 that morning. Well, you weren't sad about your grandmother passing until you had the thought of, oh, my grandmother passed. If it was where everybody was supposed to have a preset emotion for an event, you would have started crying at 4:00 in the morning when she actually died. You would have been upset. You would have woke up. You would have been sad for the passing of your grandmother before anybody ever told you. So emotions, yes, they are neutral. So you have a neutral circumstance. That's whatever that circumstance is, whatever that event was, that it generates a thought. You get a thought. Boom. All right. Your daughter is not talking to you. She is ignoring you anytime you talk to her. She just acts like you weren't even in the same room. Well, that's generating a thought. And typically what that thought more than likely is in this scenario is something along the lines of she's being irrational. She's being childish. She is being selfish. She's, you've got a thought that runs through your head. She's disconnected from me. And that's probably the feeling that this gentleman is actually having, is that I don't have the strong connection with my daughter that I need to have. Something's been severed and it's bad and it needs to be fixed and I need to repair it. And so because you have that emotion that you think something is wrong, because you think the connection is broken, you're going to want to try to fix it, which would be the end result, the action. You're going to, either get angry about, you're going to lash out, tell her she needs to buck up. She needs to get her head on straight. She needs to just get over it. It's not permanent. All these things that a lot of parents just react out of. They just have this reaction instead of a response. When you take that action, whatever that action ends up being, say you yell at your daughter because she's ignoring you. Well, the response is going to be that she's going to ignore you more, or because she's gotten a response out of her dad. She's hoping that you will experience this uncomfortable feeling of disconnection, that there's not a connection there, so that you will relent and make uncle sleep on the floor in your bedroom instead of her. That is basically her ignoring him is a form of manipulation. She's trying to manipulate him into getting her way. And if he's a people pleaser, he will fall for that manipulation quite easily because he's trying to manipulate her back into liking him. So what would be the best response to this? Well, the best response is actually to understand that you can't control how she feels. You can't control her emotionally speaking. She does have a free will, so she can choose to be angry about it all she wants. She can choose to get over it. She can choose to accept it. All the different choices that she has are all her choices. She, at this moment, has decided that she's going to choose being resentful and ignore dad. He also has a choice. He can choose to bend to what her manipulations are, or she can decide, never mind. He can decide, no, never mind. I'm not going to let this spoil my week with my brother. And because of that, he can actually choose to be happy, even though she's being a grumpy teenager, being moody and everything. He actually has the choice of being happy and accepting it. And that actually will have a better effect on her because it shows her a couple different things. One, you can't control people by trying to manipulate them. It works a little bit, but eventually people just stop. They go, okay, dude, I'm tired of this game. We're moving on. Two, it also shows people that will show her that, yeah, it's going to suck, but you're going to live through it. You're going to be okay with it. And you're going to carry on. And after your uncle leaves, she's going to be able to have her room back, and she's going to find that nothing's been destroyed. Yeah, there might be the icky thought of a fat, sweaty man sleeping in her bed for 7 nights, but that sensation will go away. First night she actually closes her eyes. So my response to this dad was just let her go. Let her be angry. Let her be whatever she wants to be. And you be happy. If dad will be happy, daughter will probably not get necessarily. She'll either stomp around and she'll be moody for the whole week, and she'll make her own self miserable, which is her own fault. It's trying to say that it's dad's fault that she's angry is just her trying to give up her responsibilities for her emotions and cast blame on dad. It's just, your typical victim mindset that most teenagers have from time to time. It's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault that something's gone wrong, that they're not in peak happy mode. While she can actually also learn from this whole experience that me being moody doesn't change anybody else's reactions. It doesn't have effect on them. They were still having a good time, and I got left out of the fun because I was being grump butt here. So if you ever have something like this happening, my good podcast listener, try that. Just you be happy. Worry about your own emotional happiness while teenager is throwing their emotional tempest. You can stay happy. You can be in the moment and have a good time. And they will learn, hey, I guess if I'm wanting to be happy, it's on me. I have to decide I'm going to be happy myself. It's not an instant thing. It takes all teenagers all the way up to about 27, 28 before people start realizing, oh, it's not anybody else's anybody else's responsibility to make me happy. It's on me. So again, if you would like to have a question of the week read, please feel free to shoot me an email over at brian@relaxedmail.com, or you can go to relaxedmail.com/contact and leave your question there. And so now we're going to head on over to the main topic, which is about the man's soul. Now, what do I mean by the man's soul? That is actually kind of an odd question to have. What is the man's soul? Well, we've all been, if you're in a religious frame of mind, it's that inner being, that spirit, the spirit that's inside of you. It's you. It's who you are. And if you are not feeding your soul, a lot of times the people who don't take care of themselves and take care of their soul find that they have, they're not as fulfilled. They lack the fulfillment of life, when in all reality, it's because of them them choosing to not feed their soul. And a man's soul is probably one of the most neglected pillars out of the four pillars of relaxed male. We get so caught up with life and trying to take care of our family and trying to make sure that they're in a comfortable space that we shove our stuff off to the side. That's one reason why a lot of times whenever I'm talking about priorities, I put me second after God. It's God, me, family, friends, community. If you can put yourself second, you actually are doing things that actually benefit, your friends and family and everything else. When you have yourself emotionally and you feed your soul, the results of that and the fruits that bear are available to feed your family and your friends and the community. Now, one reason why I kind of jumped into this and why the soul is so important is because the soul, if you look at how in the Bible, God created the heavens and earth. It took him 7 days. We can argue the nuances of what that means till the cows come home. But he created the heavens and the earth. We call God the creator. He is the one who created us, and he created us in his own image. If that's the case, then that means that we are creators ourselves. That's why so many people who have a hard time with life and are struggling to find balance, a lot of times they find a harmony in being able to create, whether that's carving little faces into sticks, or you paint, or you do photography, or you build matchstick houses. When we create stuff, we unleash an element of our passion. And our passion can be a lot of different things. That's why feeding your soul requires that we seek out, find, and embrace our zone of genius. Now, if you have not ever heard of the zone of genius, this is a concept that was brought up by Gay Hendricks in the book, The Big Leap. Great book. Recommend everybody read it. Gives you a great insight into how to live your life to the fullest. Not the end all be all, but it gives you a very good roadmap onto how to find the fulfillment that you need. And the biggest way that you find that fulfillment is through your zone of genius, that calling, that passion of yours, where if you go in to start working on your passion, all of a sudden you find out that you've spent 30 minutes on a project, but the day's gone. When you feel like all of a sudden you've been sitting down and you think you've been working for 7 hours and you've only been working for 1. And it's not a gasp. It's just, holy smokes, I got a lot done. It's time ceases to really function in its perceived way. Gay calls that Einstein time, where all of a sudden you can get into that flow state and you just become hyper productive, or you become so engrossed in something that time seems to stand still. And so this is where we are really feeding our soul, our inner being. We are doing what we were created to do. It might be that you have a passion for numbers, and so you may crawling through tables and spreadsheets for a business might be your calling. And those are the guys who just love to get into work, and they sit down and they start doing their accounting and embrace every little small aspect of it. Or it could be that that the only time you really find solace and enjoyment is when you go out into the woods and you are able to be by yourself and you're able to listen to the birds and you can hear the different birds and you like to name those birds out. And it's just that washing away, that shifting of gears. And so, yeah, feeding your soul is not just one little aspect. It's a really big aspect of finding a way to feed your soul, but it's also not to drain who you are. And we've all had an issue, I'm sure, one time or another. At least I know I have, where we are in a job that we call, and this is so aptly called, a soul-sucking job. There's nothing about it that you get enjoyment from. You live for Friday. Boom, Friday, 5:00. Thank you. I can finally get out of this hellhole. And you have a great time all through Friday night, Saturday day, and then about Sunday, 3:00 in the afternoon, all of a sudden you get a little tension in your stomach. And with being in a soul-sucking job, I was in one for a while. I've gotten into another one, which it serves me a little bit better. The day job is just a little bit different. It's still in the same field, but it's just a little bit different. But it allows me time to decompress, to take that deep voice, go, yes, all right. And I can actually relax, and I don't have to worry that I'm going to get home. Just getting my laundry thrown into the washer and getting a call from my boss going, hey, ready for you to go out. Need you to be over there here in about, you've got a 6-hour trip and I need you to get there in 4. It's one of those things where you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And the stress of it and the fact that you're not able to unwind from things like that causes so much friction in your life, so much friction in your soul that you suffer an aptly named word again as burnout. Burnout is such a huge problem. If you don't feed your soul, you don't nourish your soul, you don't take care of yourself mentally and emotionally, you're going to end up having health issues. You got that ulcer, you suffer from massive migraines, you may start suffering from depression or start numbing that sensation one way or another, so that you start drinking on Friday night and you don't stop until you go to bed Sunday morning or Sunday night. Those lack of being able to feed your soul and to nourish your soul often results in a lot of these different ailments, and your mental health can suffer from that. And that's one reason why so many suicides for men happen Sunday night, Monday morning. They wake up or go to bed and realize they just can't do this anymore. And so they do a very rash thing and they lose themselves. And we lose great men because they are not operating in their zone of genius. They're not taking care of themselves. in taking care of their souls. Now, you might be wanting to say, well, I'm very good at what I do. Well, being very good at something isn't necessarily in your zone of genius. There are 4 zones that Gayhinch talks about. There is the zone of incompetence. This is stuff that you can't do. If you've not ever looked at an actuary table, you wouldn't know what any of the stuff in there means, and you wouldn't be able to decipher any of the information that it provides. You are very incompetent with actuary tables. I know I am. I've not ever, the reason I know is because I've not ever looked at them. I'm very incompetent when it comes to teaching physics. I mean, I know the very, very, very basics of it, but that's about the extent. You also then have the zone of competence, and this is stuff that you can muddle your way through. Accounting. I can do my taxes. It takes me a little bit, but I can do my taxes. That is a zone of competence. Then you have a zone of excellence. Now, this is stuff that you're good at. Doing social media, something I'm good at. I can do social media, but it's not my calling. It is not what I am really called to do. And if you look at what your excellence is, just, if you looked at everything, each zone is a circle. A lot of times we hit just right outside the zone of genius. We're just right there, just a fraction of an inch further in, and we'd be in our zone of genius. But we operate right there where we are comfortable at working. Our inner thermostat tells us, hey, you're getting a little too successful, back it down. And so it holds us from entering into our zone of genius. So we get right up to the level, and we don't ever cross that level into the zone of genius, because we start to get, it feels like it's too much fun. It feels that it's not something that we should be enjoying. And how come we're making money at something that we're having fun? Work is not supposed to be fun. Work is supposed to be work, toiling and sweating, and supposed to have all this stress involved. And that's all a big lie that we've told ourselves. In all reality, when we work in the zone of genius and we enjoy ourselves, we become that much more productive, that much more capable, and we are not just limited to just doing something day in and day out. We actually look forward to going to work, because we get to do, for me, I get to help people to see that their life is a lot more expansive than they believe. It's not that they are stuck with watching their kids grow up from the cab of a truck. They're not stuck with fighting through an hour and a half, 2 hours of traffic, even though they live a half mile away from where they work. These problems that men have come from us not being able to feed our soul. And so to feed it, a lot of times I recommend that guys actually do. They sit down. Have you ever wanted to find yourself just doodling stuff out? Have you tried sitting down and actually seeing if you can learn how to draw? A good way of kind of determining a creativity stint is a creativity branch that you may be kind of interested in, that your soul is actually hungering for, is go to Hobby Lobby and wander around, up and down. Where are the areas that all of a sudden you kind of perk up? You kind of get a little bit lighter feeling. So maybe it's walking past the drawing tablets and the pencils and all of that. Maybe you see a bunch of watercolors and you find yourself looking at those watercolors a lot. There's little clues as to what we can do to create. Maybe you go to every time you walk from work down to the local eatery that you like to visit, you walk past I don't even know if they have counter stores anymore. The last one I used to love to go to is closed and is out. But go to, if maybe you walk past a photography store and you always find yourself stopping for a couple minutes, looking at the different lenses and camera bodies and seeing what they have available there. But you never go in, you just kind of stop and kind of look before you go on. Well, maybe that's an indication that maybe you want to start taking up a little bit of photography. Don't have to make it a full-time profession. You're not out to make it a profession. If it becomes a profession, that's an excellent perk. But you can have a hobby that interests you, feeds your passion. You find things that you are passionate about, and that's another really good indicator as to what your zone of genius is, what your soul needs to have to be thoroughly fulfilled. Now, and a lot of people also have issues when it comes to finding their passion, thinking, oh, well, I get so stressed doing it. Well, is the stress bothering you? A lot of times if people question, look at a teenager. I mean, that's a great example. Anybody who plays video games, it doesn't have to just be teenagers. I play video games, and my kids used to laugh at me because they say I speak of German because I'd get so so aggravated at it that there'd be several curse words that would escape my lips as I'm playing. As I died for the 1,000th time trying to get past one stage. Our video games not feeding my soul because I got angry, because I'm stressed. I'm gripping my controller tight because I'm trying to do this underwater level, and I've got a very limited amount of breath that I can do. No, it's not. It's fun. It really is. Getting aggravated is kind of a fun thing to do when it comes to video games because there's a reward at the end, and that reward, that huge bump of burst of serotonin. You get that right, yay, finally did it. There's that whole line of reward that you get, even though getting up to that level was so frustrating, so it was a damnable experience. But it was fun at the same time. So we often think that you have to be in this Zen state. No, you don't have to be in a Zen state to be in the zone of genius. It does help, and a lot of people do find themselves, in the zone, in the flow, so if you will, where you're able to just get massive amounts of stuff done, all because you're in that zone of genius. While people who are in their zone of excellence, they can get a lot of stuff done, but they're fighting themselves the whole way. They're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And because of that stress, that friction of not doing something that you really don't enjoy doing anymore, that's where that burnout, that friction creates burnout. So one of the ways that you can feed your soul is just to find a way to take time for yourself. Be able to just shift gears, shift that mental gear down. So maybe you have a hobby of collecting stamps and you like to look and do the research and find all the information you can about this particular stamp. Or maybe you're into coin collecting. Maybe you've got an RC plane. Get a hobby. Hobbies are amazing for the sole fact that it's something that you are passionate about. But you don't have the stress of having to make sure that you are making a profit from it. You don't have to have a podcast that makes money. You can do a podcast because you're creating something to share with other people. You're feeding your soul because you're talking and you're getting your knowledge out for people to hear. Maybe down the road, somebody decides to start throwing you some bucks every week. Okay, that's a great little perk to the process, but it's not your sole goal. Your sole goal is just to be creating that podcast each week. Perhaps you like to do digital image manipulation, so you like to stick yourself into Photoshop yourself into pictures with celebrities. I see a lot of people who do that these days. They get a kick out of it. The rest of the world gets a kick out of it. seeing them do crazy things like that. There's a lot of passion and a lot of just being able to just shift that gear, allow your soul to decompress and to be able to enjoy what the process of creating something, the process of being able to witness what God has created, being able to take in. Maybe you don't have an artistic bone in your body, but boy, do you love to look at it. So maybe your passion is just visiting museums and looking and spending hours studying, the intricate details of the Mona Lisa, or looking at the Last Supper, or looking at A Starry Night, or maybe Monet just stirs something in your soul. You feel that deep down, that is touching something, and allow that item, that event to actually touch you, and to feel, allow your soul to be felt. And that right there's a good overview as to what a man's soul is and why it is important. Because if you have the man's soul is taken care of and is healthy, it helps your mind, the man's mind. It supports the man's mind. The man's mind supports the soul, and both of those help support your body. If you're doing something that you like, you're going to be out. You're going to be taking care of your body. You're going to be in a better health. You're going to be better health mentally and physically. And with both of those, you're going to be able to feed your soul a lot more readily and easier at the same time. So I thank you again for taking the time as we were talking about the man's soul, which is the third pillar. Next week will end up being the last of that of this series, and we're talking about the man's community and what does that mean? Why is the community important? And then after that, the next week, just to give you a heads up, I have got another interview coming up. This is actually with the top person on my list of people I wanted to interview when I started this podcast. And I didn't think I was going to have him on the show for a couple of years down the road until I got big enough that I might be able to attract him. But he was gracious enough to come on, and we're going to be talking to Trip Lanier here in 2 weeks. So, guys, I thank you again. If you like this podcast, you've listened all the way through now, you like what's being said, you like the value, if you could go to relaxedmale.com/podchaser, that's PODCHASER, Podchaser, that will take you to my Podchaser page. And from there, if you could actually rate and review the podcast, that will help out so many people who hit that site looking for new shows. If you are an iTunes an iPhone user, I know you don't have to download every episode, but it wouldn't hurt if you just click that subscribe button and give me a subscription there. That will actually help get me raised higher in the rankings for iTunes. That's one of the big determining factors is how many people within a week subscribe. So if you like the show, click subscribe. You don't have to. You can actually, even if you use another podcatcher, just subscribe and then just turn off the downloads for all the shows. That helps. And if you are listening, have a different podcatcher, you can actually go to relaxedmale.com/subscribe, and I have all the different ways that you can actually subscribe. Most of them are 1 to 2 click options. If you're an Android user, we've got you covered. I've made sure I'm not about to forget that 3/4 of the world uses Android. And so, guys, I've got you covered. I've got ways for you to be able to subscribe to the show for yours. Either the 1-click subscribe on Android button, or you can, or if you happen to be listening through one of the different podcatchers that are strictly on Android, I have you covered. Or if you just like a good old-fashioned RSS link, I've got that for you also. So I've got you covered. So, guys, I thank you again for listening. Hope that you've been able to garner some help and kind of start leading you down the path of trying to find out what your zone of genius is. And again, you can go to Amazon and download it or order a copy of The Big Leap by Gabe Hendricks. It's available on audiobook too if you happen to listen to it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you go. Y'all have a great week. Thank you again for listening. We will catch you next week with the Man's Community. So till then, go find something.